Despite the financial strength of the Friday the 13th franchise fading for a while, every film in the franchise had at least been mildly profitable to that point. Sadly for New Line and everyone else involved, that changed with Jason X. No matter how anyone may feel about the direction Jason X took, one fact is undeniable: it was a box office bomb. While it opened at a distant but respectable number 3 during its opening weekend, the film ended up making just $17 million during its entire theatrical run on a new franchise-high $13 million budget. People like Todd Farmer and others involved with the film blame New Line for waiting almost 2 years to release the film, only doing so after it leaked online. From New Line's perspective, though, the ridiculous concept of Jason in space was a doomed one from the start. Todd Farmer actually had some hopes of exploring the Jason X path further, planning out writing scripts for 2 other movies, making a complete trilogy. The second film would have explored Jason on Earth 2, with the finale of the trilogy seeing Uber Jason go back in time to meet and fight regular Jason. While some of these concepts would be explored in future Jason X comics and novels, the bad box office of the first film would end any hope Farmer had of exploring Jason X on screen further. Love or hate this fact, it's extremely unlikely that we ever see an on-screen Jason X sequel. But it's important to remember that Jason X was never supposed to even exist. It was just a placeholder for a showdown of the slashers, and in 2003, the showdown finally made it to screens. But how did it take so long? How did this showdown that fans desperately wanted and New Line executives had dollar signs in their eyes just thinking about take over 10 years to complete? Well, credit must be given to Sean Cunningham, Robert Shea, and Michael DeLuca. It was understood by all three from the beginning that they weren't going to rush something out there just to make a profit. If they were going to do it, it was going to be done right, with a creative direction that would make sense in bringing the franchises together while being respectful to both icons, franchises, and their fans. So, as I said, this approach by everyone involved was commendable. It would have been so easy to just force something out there knowing it would make a ton of money regardless, but they didn't want to do that. The problem was, finding the right script that satisfied Cunningham, DeLuca, and Shea was harder than anyone could have imagined. The biggest challenge was, how do you bring these two iconic characters together when they literally exist in different worlds? Almost a dozen screenwriters would try and fail to answer that question. Before we get into the version that we did get, let's briefly explore some other attempts to make this crossover happen that didn't make it to screen. The first script was written by a close friend of Sean Cunningham, Louis Abernathy. His concept, which was called Nightmare 13, revolved around a Freddy cult trying to revive the Dream Demon, which they do by kidnapping a developmentally impaired 13-year-old girl, Lizzie. Her sister, Megan, in an attempt to get her back, is led to Jason, who she revives to fight Freddy. The big fight happens in hell at the end of the movie, in a boxing ring made out of blood, guts, and intestines, with Ted Bundy officiating the match, and Frankenstein, Hitler, and Lee Harvey Oswald all watching on in the audience with other monsters and zombies. It's also revealed during this fight that Freddy was the one who drowned Jason when he was a kid. Enraged, Jason kills Freddy before being gunned down himself. The film ends with a callback to the phone scene in the original Nightmare on Elm Street, hinting that Freddy is still alive. Another script, written by Ronald Moore and Brandon Braga, was called Jason vs. Freddy, and it would have taken place in the Elm Street universe but been a much more Jason and Friday the 13th centric film, which explains the name reversal. The film would have established the previous Friday the 13th movies as just that, fictional movies. Those movies would have been loosely based on a real-life Jason Voorhees, although this one isn't deformed, and his mother never went on a killing spree of her own, as she died of cancer when Jason was a kid. To get even more wild, the beginning of the film would have seen the arrest of this Jason, and him going on trial for his crimes. That is brief, as a relative of one of Jason's victims shows up to the courthouse and shoots up the place, greatly injuring Jason and requiring surgery. This allows Freddy to re-enter the real world, where he wreaks havoc and inflicts waking nightmares on people at a shopping mall. Jason then must get revenge on Freddy after it's revealed again that Freddy drowned Jason as a kid, this time after Jason walked in on Freddy having sex with Pamela as they were having an affair. This ends with Jason blowing up the mall, killing both him and Freddy. Another concept was written by Peter Briggs in 1996. Also, the film itself takes place in 1999 and sees the return of Steven and Jessica from Jason Goes to Hell and Alice from The Dream Child. It would be revealed once again that Freddy drowned Jason as a kid, although this time, instead of putting Jason on a quest for revenge, it puts him under the control of Freddy. Why did Freddy drown him this time? Well, it turns out that Jason was an Elm Street kid before going to Camp Crystal Lake, and the Voorhees parents were part of the mob that killed Freddy. It's then that the Dream Demon drowns Jason in Crystal Lake. Jason and Freddy battle in hell after disagreeing over who gets to kill Alice and Jessica. The film itself ends with an FBI agent going back in time to 1960 Springwood and forging a signature on an unsigned arrest warrant of Freddy, meaning he never gets off on a technicality. This would have been a mind-blowing ending, as it changes history to where Freddy never becomes the Dream Demon and Jason never becomes the Crystal Lake Killer. It would have been stunning, but certainly controversial. The Briggs script is the last unmade one I'm going to cover for now. If you want to learn more about these scripts and other unmade drafts, I'd recommend reading Slash of the Titans by Dustin McNeil. A few other things to note here are that Tom McLaughlin and Adam Marcus made their own official pitches to New Line, although neither one got turned into a full script. The Marcus pitch would have seen Tommy Jarvis return along with Nancy from Nightmare on Elm Street and Creighton Duke from Jason Goes to Hell. Freddy and Jason escape from hell and are having a competition. Whoever kills Nancy and Tommy first gets to stay on Earth, with the loser going back to hell. Duke was there for protection for Nancy and Tommy. The McLaughlin pitch would have taken place in a mental institution, with two inmates who just think they are Freddy and Jason fighting. This was going to have a much darker tone than what McLaughlin's Jason Lives had, and explore the effects that things like horror movies have on people. I love Tom McLaughlin, but it's easy to see why this was never even considered. In 1998, even without a full greenlit script, a director was hired for Freddy vs. Jason, Rob Bottin. The special effects legend, who is maybe most famously known for his work on John Carpenter's The Thing, was the choice. As fascinating as that would have been, seriously, you can imagine how great Freddy and Jason would have looked with him in charge, and that's not even mentioning the kills. The project continued to stay in development hell, straining his relationship with the studio. He eventually left the project over family issues. But now it's time to talk about the Freddy and Jason movie that actually did get made. Who are the writers that finally cracked the code? It was none other than Damian Shannon and Mark Swift in 2002. In writing their script, they came up with rules that were to be followed, including no blending the backstories of the two characters to create conflict, no returning characters outside of Freddy and Jason, and that there was to be balance, both with the characters and tone of the film. They wrote their script, and New Line really liked it. Sean Cunningham has since admitted he did not, but since he just wanted to get the movie made, he signed off on it. Other than that, he took a creative step back from the project at this point. He actually tried to get more creatively involved again just weeks before filming was set to begin, which New Line refused to let him do. This made him livid, so in an attempt to calm things down, New Line made Cunningham's daughter an associate producer on the project, and Cunningham himself got to keep his executive producer title, even though it was in name only. So with the script finally moving forward, who would be the director of Freddy vs. Jason? That would be Ronnie Yu, who had previously directed Bride of Chucky. When initially approached, Yu didn't have much interest in the project, partly because he didn't have much familiarity or passion with either franchise. That's exactly why New Line wanted him, though. They thought his outsider perspective could be beneficial to the film. They wore him down and he was hired. The creative team was in place. Needless to say, the pre-production of Freddy vs. Jason wasn't easy, so why would the actual filming of the movie be any different? Filming started in September of 2002 and concluded in December of that same year. It was a difficult production, largely due to director Ronnie Yu. He would have wild mood swings while working. Sometimes he would be enthusiastic and energetic, other times he would fall into deep depressions over the work. The mood swings took their toll on the cast and crew, but after the long wait, how did this film actually turn out? Let's get into it. So with all the different scripts and concepts we got for Freddy vs. Jason, what was the movie we actually got about? Well, let me tell you. Freddy Krueger, trapped in hell and losing his powers because the parents of Springwood have erased any memories or acknowledgments of him to protect their children, resurrects hockey-masked slasher Jason Voorhees to make them remember. Disguised as Jason's mother, Freddy sends him to Elm Street to kill. However, Jason goes on an uncontrollable killing spree, prompting Freddy to fight him. And there is your synopsis for Freddy vs. Jason 2003. So the first thing I can say that I really love about this movie is the simple but effective way it brings these two slasher icons together. That was something that I think was really plaguing a lot of previous attempts at Freddy vs. Jason, which was a lot of overthinking and trying to come up with a complicated blending of the worlds and backstories, which led to a lot of avenues and ideas that just didn't fit the continuity of either franchise. For example, In the Briggs draft, while making Jason an Elm Street kid is cool, after burning Freddy alive, the Voorhees family decides to go up to Crystal Lake for a vacation, which is where Freddy drowns Jason. The problem with that is that it doesn't even come close to fitting into the established Friday the 13th lore, where Pamela was a cook at the camp with Jason attending. The same problems exist in the Abernathy draft. That's not a problem with this script, and it's easy to see why this one was the one that ended up getting made. Pretty much, at the beginning of the movie, Freddy is in hell, Jason is in hell, and Freddy has lost his power because Springwood has completely erased his existence, including institutionalizing anyone who has come in contact with him. He scours hell to find someone who can instill fear back into Springwood, and who does he call upon? None other than Jason Voorhees, of course. Again, it's such a simple and easily digestible way to bring these icons together, and it works so well. Really, anyone can pick up this movie and enjoy it, even if they've never seen a Friday or Nightmare film before. As long as you have the most basic understanding of these two characters, you'll be able to sit down and follow along easily. It takes a while, but once the Freddy vs. Jason showdown we all came to see happens, it is absolutely fantastic. We get one in the dream world, where Jason puts up a good fight, but Freddy predictably wins. Later on, they fight again in the real world at Camp Crystal Lake, where Jason predictably wins even though Freddy gives him everything he has got. Seriously, these two absolutely fuck each other up during that second fight. Freddy cuts off Jason's fingers and gouges his eyes out, while Jason impales Freddy with his own glove and throws him around a cabin. Again, it takes a bit, but once the fighting begins, it absolutely lives up to the hype. Most of the other scripts in development of the film only had Freddy and Jason fighting once, often at the very end of the screenplay. That's not the case here, and I absolutely love it. Outside of the showdown, while I do have some problems with how Jason is handled in this film, he does have a few standout moments early on. The kill of Trey in the bed is the standout kill of the film. Later on, we see Jason wreak havoc as he gets on fire at the cornfield party, which isn't a party I ever attended in my younger days, but whatever. It's the most memorable non-fight sequence in the film, and the shot of Jason walking around this cornfield slicing people up as he is fully ablaze is iconic in its own right. While I do have some mixed feelings about them overall, my feelings do lean positive on this cast of characters. They do a solid enough job carrying the movie as we, the audience, wait to get to what we all came to see in Freddy vs. Jason. My favorite characters were actually Kia and Linderman. Both actors do a damn good job in their respective roles, and I really was invested in their budding relationship. To be honest, there's a part of me that wishes they were the couple to make it out of the movie alive.
And I guess I'm penalized for my ability to read above a 4th grade level.
Linderman, you know, I always pictured you as a straight-up bedwetter.
You know what, Kia? I used to think you hated me because you thought I wasn't good enough for Lori. But that's not it. See, you tear me down to make yourself feel better because you really hate yourself, which is kind of pathetic when you actually stop and think about it, assuming, of course, you can think, with all that makeup weighing down your head.
What are you looking at? Come on, let's dance. Come on, Linderman, let's go.
Deputy Stubbs was also a character I really liked, and I wish he was in the movie longer. I really felt for his character, who is someone who just moved to Springwood and is not trying to rock the boat while also having a strong feeling that something isn't right about the situation. Brendan Fletcher as Mark also arguably steals the show, and I wish he was in the movie a bit longer as well, although it's cool that he's the one Freddy kill in the movie.
1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. You know why they sing that? Because that's when he comes for you. In your dreams. You're lucky to be alive.
Who is he?
He's a child murderer that some parents from around here burned alive. Then he came back. Back for revenge in our nightmares. Funny no one ever told us.
Okay,
about
thank
it,
you.
huh?
No.
You want some free advice? Coffee. Make friends with it. Kurt? How many times do I have to tell you, man? I don't do checkers. I'm an Uno guy, all right? So go grab the fucking Uno deck and we'll play, okay? Please. Thank you.
Kyle Labine does a good job as the standard but entertaining stoner character. I actually think that the weakest characters in the bunch are Laurie and Will. Brad Renfro was originally cast to play Will, but he had to be replaced by Jason Ritter due to substance abuse issues. Monica Keena gives a solid performance, but she's far from the best final girl in either franchise. I just didn't really care about the relationship between Will and Laurie, and as I said before, I honestly wish Kia and Linderman were the couple that got more focus and made it out. Overall though, while still somewhat of a mixed bag, and certainly not the best either franchise has to offer, I do lean positive on the characters of this film. Finally, I can say I did really love the ending of this film and how it's left up to the interpretation of the audience. They knew that if they allowed either icon to be shown as the clear winner, they would be pissing off and alienating just as many people as they would be satisfying. Whether you come at it from a Jason or a Friday the 13th perspective or a Freddy Nightmare on Elm Street one, you can make a case that either killer came out of it the victor. The original ending for the film is actually completely different, as the film jumps forward a few months and we see Will and Laurie in her bed making love. Things go bad and Will reveals himself to be Freddy. This ending was added by an outside writer who was brought on to polish the script. Damian Shannon and Mark Swift never liked it, and it didn't do well with test audiences, so it was scrapped. Personally, I think it's for the best, as I think the ending we got is much better. The case for Jason winning is obvious. He's coming out of the lake holding Freddy's severed head. But I've heard the theory that Freddy has trapped Jason in the dream world and is manipulating Jason. Personally, I do think Jason won, but the theories presented are very interesting. At the very least, the wink by Freddy at the end signifies that the war between the two icons isn't over. It also seems like the perfect way for Robert Englund to say goodbye to Freddy, as this to date has been the last time he's played the character on the big screen, and he has maintained that he never will play the character again. Considering he's 79, that's understandable. There at one point was consideration by New Line to have two endings, one where Freddy clearly wins and one where Jason clearly wins. That would have been cool, but I'm perfectly happy with the ending we got. But now, it's time to get into what I didn't like about the movie. The main problem I have with it is, despite their best efforts, this feels predominantly more like a Freddy and Nightmare on Elm Street movie than a Jason and Friday the 13th movie. In one of the rules they made for themselves when writing this movie, Damian Shannon and Mark Swift strived for balance, where sometimes it feels more like an Elm Street movie, and other times it feels more like a Friday movie. Again, you can see the effort there at times, but I'm not sure that they were entirely successful in striking that balance. I've actually heard some claim the opposite, that it's more of a Friday movie than an Elm Street movie. But honestly, I'm not sure how you can make that claim. Freddy is the one who opens and closes the film. Our main cast of characters outside of the two icons are from Springwood, where their main goal is to defeat Freddy. We spend way more time in Springwood over Crystal Lake, and when we do get to Crystal Lake, the only recognizable settings are the dock and one cabin. They spend most of their time at Crystal Lake fighting at an unexplained construction site. Apparently more Crystal Lake stuff was supposed to be in the film, with the story about realtors trying to make Crystal Lake a vacation spot, with Tommy Jarvis even making an appearance, but this part of the film was significantly cut down, with only the construction site and the realty signs as reminders. We also get a sequence in Freddy's iconic boiler room, and I think it would have been cooler if we got a fight or at least a look into Jason's shack and shrine to Pamela. That's such an eerie and iconic set that I'm surprised it's never been used in a Friday movie again. Listen, if you're coming at this as more of a Nightmare on Elm Street Freddy fan, none of this is a problem. But if you haven't been able to tell, guys, I'm a much bigger Friday fan than a Nightmare fan. So coming at it from that perspective, it's disappointing to see the Friday side of things get shortchanged. Maybe if we got a sequel that felt predominantly like a Friday movie, it would help balance things out. But honestly, it's been so long, that's unlikely to ever happen. Sadly, to go off of that, I can say that I don't really care for this version of Jason Voorhees. Despite desperately wanting to participate, Kane Hodder was not brought back as Jason, instead being replaced by Ken Kersinger. Listen, I made it clear during my previous Friday the 13th reviews that I've never adored Hodder's version of the character like some do. I've always liked his portrayal, but have never loved it. However, putting that aside, reading and listening to him during interviews, it's clear the guy had an incredible amount of love, respect, and passion playing the character. Probably more than anyone who had previously played the character. After doing research about how all this went down, it's clear Hodder was mistreated in his recasting. In pre-production, he was given a script and led to believe they wanted him to play Jason. He even had a good meeting with director Ronnie Yu. Then after some time went by, he spotted a casting call for the role of Jason. Hodder called one of the producers, who abruptly told him they were going in a different direction. Even after Hodder pleaded to be reconsidered for the role, he was let go with no clear reason given for why this change happened. To this day, it's unclear who made the final decision for the recasting, or the reason for it. New Line says the decision was Ronnie Yu's, whereas Ronnie Yu blames the studio. Hodder even accuses Ken Kersinger of misrepresenting his role in Jason X Manhattan, which Kersinger was Hodder's stunt double on, but only for 3 scenes, in order to get the part. Either way, the recasting was done, and in my opinion, it is a downgrade. I don't love the look of Jason in the film, as he comes off looking rather dopey. But even beyond that, while taller, Kersinger is just too slow and robotic in his portrayal of Jason. It seems like this was more at the direction of Ronnie Yu than a creative choice by Kersinger, but either way, this interpretation of the character is a downgrade here, in my opinion. Finally, on the smaller end of my negatives, there's quite a bit of really dated CGI in the film. We see that with a lot of the blood and gore, but it really stands out mostly in the scene with the Freddy worm. While it fits the movie to an extent, it still aged quite a bit and takes you out of the movie. Another small disappointment for me is that while we do see Mrs. Voorhees in the film, she was not portrayed by Betsy Palmer here. Palmer was offered the role and open to playing the character again, but a combination of a salary dispute combined with Betsy not being satisfied with the script, she turned it down and Paula Shaw was cast to replace her. Shaw passed away in September of 2025, and I think she does a really good job in the role. Still, it would have been awesome to see Betsy Palmer reprise the role one final time. But overall, guys, despite some flaws, especially coming at it from a Friday the 13th perspective, I really do enjoy Freddy vs. Jason. The showdown and fights live up to the hype, the new cast of characters do enough to carry the build-up to the showdown, another great Robert Englund performance as the Dream Demon, we get a couple of great Jason kills, and an ending that still has people talking over 2 decades later. This movie delivers. I'm going to give Freddy vs. Jason a 6 out of 10, but that's going to do it for me today, guys. What do you think about Freddy vs. Jason? Are you satisfied with the movie we got, or do you wish we would have gotten one of those other concepts? Comment below and let me know your thoughts, and I will see you guys later. Okay, take care.